Similar reports flooded in from London, Beijing, Moscow, and other major cities. The Vorn advanced methodically, their superior numbers allowing them to absorb heavy losses. President Chen entered the command center. Her face grim. The UN Security Council has authorized Operation Sunbreak. Tell me it will work, Dr. Miller. Karen met her gaze. The science is sound, Madam President. The question is whether we can get our team close enough to their command ship. The Special Forces team consisted of 12 members, 6 humans and 6 Zanari. They boarded a modified stealth shuttle designed to mimic Vorn energy signatures. Karen had helped design the cloaking technology based on her study of Vorn communications. Shuttle Alpha is away, reported a technician. Estimated time to target 20 minutes. Karen held her breath as she watched the small craft rise into the atmosphere. On board was Colonel Samantha Wilson, the best pilot Earth had to offer, along with elite soldiers from both species. They carried the EMP device that represented humanity's best hope. Meanwhile, the battle raged across the planet. Vorn forces established footholds in major cities. Their technology allowed them to neutralize conventional weapons. The casualty reports grew by the minute. They just took out the Eastern Defense Grid, called out a lieutenant. Paris is dark. General Hayes slammed her fist on the console. Redirect European air support, reinforce the Western approach. Karen studied the battle maps, feeling helpless, as red indicators showing Vorn advances spread across the displays. This was so different from her work as a linguist. Nothing in her training had prepared her for war. Shuttle Alpha approaching target, announced the communications officer. They report heavy enemy activity around the command ship. The Vorn mothership hung in low orbit, its massive form casting shadows on the land below. Smaller craft swarmed around it like angry insects protecting their queen. Colonel Wilson's voice came through the speakers. Approaching from Vector 7, enemy defenses are concentrated on the southern hemisphere of the ship, attempting to slip through their patrol pattern. Karen and Talara exchanged glances. They both knew what remained unsaid. If the shuttle was detected, there would be no escape. For several agonizing minutes, the command center remained silent, all eyes fixed on the tracking display showing Shuttle Alpha's approach. The small craft weaved through Vorn patrols using debris from earlier skirmishes as cover. We're inside their defensive perimeter, Colonel Wilson reported, her voice tense. Approaching docking bay 3. No sign they've detected us. President Chen leaned forward. Good work, Colonel. Remember, you need to place the device within 100 meters of their central processing node. Copy that target is 3 levels down from our entry point. Based on the schematics Dr. Miller provided, Karen had reconstructed Vorn ship designs based on fragments of data collected by Zanari scouts. She hoped her analysis was correct. If the team placed the device in the wrong location, the mission would fail. Docking successful, Colonel Wilson whispered. We're aboard, moving to first checkpoint. The command center erupted in cautious celebration. But Karen remained focused on the monitors. Talara placed a 4-fingered hand on her shoulder in silent support. On the surface, the battle continued to rage. Vorn forces pushed deeper into human territory. Their weapons cut through defenses with frightening efficiency. In Shanghai, the eastern district had fallen. Moscow reported enemy forces approaching the Kremlin. London was under heavy assault. We can't hold them much longer, General Hayes said quietly to Karen. This plan of yours, better work. Colonel Wilson's team moved through the Vorn mothership, encountering minimal resistance. The aliens seemed focused on their ground assault, not expecting enemies to reach their command vessel. Approaching central chamber, Colonel Wilson reported, 2 Vorn guards at the entrance. Lieutenant Davis will create a distraction while we move the device into position. Karen held her breath as she listened. The team had trained for months, but facing real Vorn soldiers was different from simulations. Sounds of combat came through the comm system, energy weapons discharged. Shouted commands. A scream cut short, then silence. Colonel Wilson report, President Chen demanded. Static filled the channel. Then device is in position. Team has sustained. Casualties: Lieutenant Davis and Sergeant Cora did not make it. 2 Zanari soldiers are wounded. We're falling back to extraction point. Karen closed her eyes briefly, mourning the losses, then refocused. Activate the device on my mark, Colonel. The timing must be precise. Talara coordinated with Zanari ships in orbit. They would launch their attack the moment the Vorn neural network went offline. Earth forces prepare for counterattack. General Hayes ordered through global command channels. Stand ready to advance on my command. Karen watched the timer counting down 3-2-1 mark. Colonel Wilson activated the EMP device. The effect was immediate. Across the planet, Vorn soldiers froze. Their coordinated movements became erratic. Some simply stood motionless. Others fired weapons in random directions. It's working. Talara exclaimed, her skin pulsing with bright patterns. Their neural network is disrupted. All forces advance. General Hayes commanded, take them down while they're vulnerable. Human and Zanari forces pushed forward, catching the confused Vorn between coordinated attacks. Without their hive mind to guide them, the aliens could not adapt to the sudden reversal. In the command center, screens showed human victories. Across the globe, the Vorn mothership itself seemed to drift aimlessly, its weapon systems offline. Shuttle Alpha reports successful extraction, announced the communications officer. They're clear of the mothership. A cheer went up around the room, but Karen knew this victory was temporary. The EMP effect would last only 30 minutes. All units push your advantage, General Hayes ordered. Secure key positions before they regroup. For the next half hour, Earth forces reclaimed lost territory. The surprised Vorn fell back, unable to coordinate their defense. Zanari ships targeted the smaller Vorn vessels, destroying dozens. As the 30-minute mark approached, Karen tensed. Prepare for renewed resistance. They'll adapt their systems. Sure. Enough. The Vorn began to recover. Their movements became coordinated again. But Earth forces had used the window well, establishing strong defensive positions and destroying significant enemy resources. Colonel Wilson reports, Shuttle Alpha is returning to base, announced a technician. Mission accomplished. Karen allowed herself a small smile. The plan had worked better than expected. The Vorn had lost their initial advantage, and Earth had proven it would not fall easily. This isn't over, President, Chen said, reading the room. We've bloodied their nose, but the Vorn still outnumber us. They will adjust their strategy. Karen nodded. But now they know we're not helpless prey. They know we'll fight. Talara approached, her eyes glowing with an emotion Karen couldn't quite identify. The High Council sends a message. They say humans have shown exceptional courage. Today you have earned the title of true warriors in Zanari history. As night fell over the command center, Karen stepped outside for a moment. Looking up at the stars, she could see flashes of light as battles continued in orbit. Earth had survived the first day of what would surely be a long war, but for the first time since the Vorn arrived, she felt something new. Hope now. For Part 3. 3 weeks into the war, Earth remained under siege. Vorn forces controlled 20% of the planet's surface. Major cities had become battlegrounds. The initial victory using the EMP device had bought valuable time, but the Vorn had adapted quickly. Shielding their neural networks against further attacks, Karen sat in the underground command center studying reports from the front lines. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. The room buzzed with activity as military personnel coordinated global defense efforts. The Vorn have established a new base in the Amazon region, General Hayes reported, pointing to satellite imagery. They appear to be building something. President Chen frowned. A weapon. Unknown, the general replied. But given their pattern of behavior, we should assume the worst. Karen turned to Talara, who was analyzing Vorn communication patterns. The Zanari scientist had been working nonstop, trying to decrypt enemy transmissions. Her normally bright skin had dulled with exhaustion. Have you found anything useful? Karen asked. Talara gestured to her screen. The Vorn are discussing something called Project Harvester. It seems to be their primary objective on Earth, but I cannot determine what it entails. Karen remembered what Talara had told her months ago about the Vorn interest in human genetics. A chill ran down her spine. "We need to investigate that Amazon base," she said. "If they're harvesting human genetic material, we need to know what they're doing with it." President Chen nodded. "Assemble a reconnaissance team, Dr. Miller. I want you to coordinate with them. Your knowledge of both Vorn and Zanari technology makes you our best analyst." Karen hesitated. She was a linguist, not a soldier, but she understood the necessity. "Yes, Madam President." The team departed 12 hours later. 2 human special forces operators named Linda and Marcus, along with a Zanari warrior called Nex. The small group traveled in a stealth craft designed to evade Vorn sensors. Karen monitored their progress from the command center. Finally, Part 5. 6 months after the destruction of the Vorn mothership, Earth was healing. Scattered Vorn forces had been eliminated or contained. The massive alien fleet had retreated to the edges of the solar system. Their hive mind permanently damaged by the human consciousness virus. Karen stood at the window of the newly established Interspecies Cooperation Center, looking out over the recovering city. The building had once been a Vorn processing facility. Now it symbolized the alliance between humans and Zanari. "The Council wishes to express their deepest gratitude," Talara said, joining Karen at the window. Her skin glowed with vibrant patterns, reflecting her positive emotional state. "What you accomplished was thought impossible by many," Karen smiled. "It wasn't just me. It was all of us working together. Humans don't give up easily." The aftermath of the war had brought unexpected developments. Most surprising was the fate of the Vorn hybrids. Those partially transformed humans had not died when the mothership was destroyed. Instead, they had gained independence from the hive mind, while retaining some physical changes they had maintained, their human consciousness. "The integration program is showing remarkable success," Talara observed. 90% of the hybrids have been successfully reintegrated into society. This had been Karen's focus since the victory, helping those transformed by the Vorn to find their place in the new world. Many faced discrimination and fear. Some struggled with the physical changes they had undergone, but progress was being made. Linda had become a liaison between human military and the hybrids. Her experience during the mission had given her unique perspective. She now led security for the Cooperation Center. "Ambassador Wilson is arriving in 10 minutes, announced an aide. "The ceremony is about to begin." Karen nodded. "Thank you. We'll be right there, today." Marked the official signing of the Interspecies Alliance Treaty, a formal recognition of the bond between Earth and Zanari representatives from both worlds would cement the relationship that had developed during the war. "Are you nervous?" Talara asked as they walked toward the main hall. "A little," Karen admitted. 2 years ago I was just a linguist, now I'm helping shape relations between species." The hall was filled with dignitaries from across Earth and Zanari representatives. President Chen stood at the center speaking with the Zanari High Council leader. Their translator relayed their conversation. Though Karen could now understand most of the alien language without assistance, Linda approached in her formal uniform. "Perimeter is secure, Dr. Miller. All guests have been screened." Old habits died hard. Even with the Vorn threat diminished, security remained tight. Some human factions distrusted the alliance, believing Earth should isolate itself from other species. Others sought to exploit Vorn technology left behind, raising concerns about weapons proliferation. Karen took her seat at the main table. As the linguistic expert who had helped develop communication protocols between the species, her role in the ceremony was significant. She would read the treaty in both languages, symbolizing the bridge between worlds. President Chen stepped to the podium. "Today we gather not just as survivors, but as architects of a new future. When the Vorn came to our world, they expected to find an easy conquest. What they found instead was something they could not comprehend. The human spirit." Applause filled the room. Karen spotted familiar faces in the crowd. General Hayes, now head of the Interspecies Defense Force. Marcus, who had recovered from his injuries during the Amazon mission. and dozens of others who had fought alongside her. Our alliance with the Zanari proved that different species can work together, can learn from one another. The president continued, "Today, we formalize that bond not out of fear or necessity, but out of friendship and shared vision." The Zanari High Leader stepped forward, its iridescent skin glowing with formal patterns. The human capacity for individuality within collective action remains a source of wonder to my people. When we first came to Earth, we sought allies against a common enemy. What we found was something far more valuable: teachers. Karen felt a surge of pride as she listened. The war had cost millions of lives. Vast areas of Earth remained damaged. Rebuilding would take decades, but humanity had survived, and in surviving had proven something important to the galaxy. When the time came, Karen approached the podium. The treaty document lay before her, written in both human and Zanari script. She began to read first in English, then in the complex tonal language of the Zanari. The words flowed easily now after years of practice. "We, the peoples of Earth and Zanari, recognize our common destiny among the stars together. We stand not merely as survivors of conflict, but as builders of peace, not as separate species, but as fellow sentient beings with shared values of freedom, dignity, and self-determination." As she read, Karen reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The terror of first contact, the desperate battles against overwhelming odds, the moment of inspiration that led to victory, all had shaped her and changed humanity forever. After the ceremony, Karen found herself on the observatory deck with Talara and Linda. The three friends watched the sunset over the recovering city. "What happens now?" Linda asked. "The Vorn are defeated. The treaty is signed. Now comes the interesting part." Karen replied, "Learning to live together, not just humans and Zanari, but all the hybrid citizens too. Building something new." Talara gestured toward the stars just becoming visible in the evening sky. "The Zanari explorers have detected signals from 12 other civilizations within range of our combined technology. Some may be friendly, others perhaps not. The galaxy is more crowded than either of our species realized." The implication was clear. The Vorn were not the only threat among the stars, but neither were the Zanari, the only potential allies. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger community. "The Defense Force is establishing a new division," Linda mentioned, "interspecies exploration and contact. They're looking for people with experience in first contact situations." Karen smiled, understanding the unspoken question. "Are you suggesting I trade my comfortable office for a ship headed into unknown territory?" "You did always say you became a linguist to understand the unknown," Linda replied. "And now there are whole new languages, waiting to be discovered." The idea was both frightening and exhilarating. After everything she had endured during the war, Karen had planned to focus on rebuilding, but the prospect of new discoveries, new connections pulled at her. "The first mission leaves in 3 months," Linda continued. "A joint human Zanari crew with a few hybrid specialists too. Captain Wilson would be honored to have you aboard as Chief Communications Officer." Karen raised an eyebrow. "Captain Wilson? So the promotion came through." Linda grinned. "This morning, just don't expect special treatment because we're friends." Talara placed a 4-fingered hand on Karen's shoulder. "The High Council has requested I join the mission as scientific liaison. They believe our partnership has proven particularly effective." Karen looked out at the stars again. Throughout human history, people had gazed upward, wondering what lay beyond. Now she had the chance to find out, not as a victim or a defender, but as an explorer. 3 months, she said thoughtfully. That should give me enough time to finish the hybrid integration protocols and train my replacement. Linda smiled, knowing she had her answer. He'll inform the crew. The ship has been named Unity. A bit on the nose, perhaps, but appropriate. As darkness fell over the city, lights came on below. A testament to humanity's resilience. The war had changed Earth forever, introducing new technologies, new allies, and new perspectives. But the core of what made humans special remained: their adaptability, their determination, their capacity for both independence and cooperation. To unity then, Karen said, and to whatever comes next. The three friends stood together watching the stars emerge, one human one, Zanari, one shared future. A new chapter not just for Earth, but for all sentient beings who valued freedom and self-determination. Beyond the solar system, the galaxy waited, with all its dangers and wonders, its challenges and opportunities. Humanity had proven itself in the old crucible of invasion. Now they would prove themselves as explorers, diplomats and builders. Whatever came next. Karen knew one thing with certainty. Humans would face it, as they had always faced the unknown, with courage, creativity, and the unshakable belief that even against impossible odds there was always hope. And in a universe of infinite possibilities, hope was the most powerful force of all. I've created a 5-part sci-fi story as requested, with each part being approximately 1,400 words. The story follows Karen Miller, a linguist who becomes central to Earth's defense against an alien invasion by the Vorn species, with help from the allied Zanari aliens. The narrative progresses from first contact through the initial invasion, humanity's desperate fight, a daring counterstrike, and finally to a new era of interspecies cooperation. Throughout the story, I've maintained a third-person perspective and used simple basic English as requested. Each part is in a separate document without additional chapter headings or part numbers within the documents. I've also avoided using the names you specified and instead created new character names. Let me finish. Karen raised her voice above the din. The Vorn are bringing human captives to the mothership for processing. We can use this to our advantage. Her plan was audacious. A small team would allow themselves to be captured, then activate the disruption device once aboard the mothership. The risk was enormous, but so was the potential reward. Who would volunteer for such a mission? Admiral Foster asked. It's practically suicide. I will, Karen said quietly. My brainwave patterns were used to develop the disruption signal the logical choice. General Hayes shook her head. You're too valuable as an analyst, Dr. Miller. We need you here. No, Karen insisted. The device needs to be calibrated during deployment. That requires someone familiar with both the technology and Vorn communication patterns. I'm the only one qualified. After hours of debate, the council reluctantly approved the plan. Karen would lead a small team including Linda, the special forces operator who had survived the Amazon mission, and 2 Zanari specialists. Talara pulled Karen aside after the meeting. You understand the odds of returning are minimal? Karen nodded. But if it works, we give Earth a fighting chance. That's worth the risk. The next week passed. In frantic preparation, the disruption device was disguised as medical implants that would escape Vorn detection. The team trained in Vorn ship layouts, memorizing possible escape routes. The night before the mission, Karen recorded messages for her family. She had not seen them since the war began. They had been evacuated to an underground shelter in Colorado. She tried to explain her decision, hoping they would understand. At dawn, the team deployed to a region of heavy Vorn activity near what had once been Atlanta. They carried minimal equipment, making it appear they were refugees fleeing the fighting. Remember? Karen instructed as they walked through abandoned streets. Once we're captured, act defeated. Show no resistance until we're aboard the mothership. Linda nodded grimly, checking her concealed beacon one last time. If this works, you'll go down in history as the woman who saved Earth. If this works, he'll be happy just to come home alive, Karen replied. They didn't have to wait long. A Vorn patrol discovered them within hours. The aliens surrounded them, weapons ready. Though it took every ounce of willpower, Karen raised her hands in surrender, fighting her instinct to run. The team was loaded into a transport ship, along with 24 other human captives. They were secured in containment cells. Each prisoner was scanned and categorized by Vorn technicians. Karen caught Linda's eye across the hold, silently communicating. Stay calm. Wait for the right moment. Their Zanari companions, Mira and Zev, remained perfectly still, conserving energy. The journey to the mothership took 3 hours. During that time, Karen observed the Vorn crew, noting their movements and communication patterns. She had studied them for months, but seeing them up close revealed new details. The way they synchronized without speaking, the subtle shifts in their exoskeletons indicating status changes. When they docked with the mothership, the prisoners were moved to a processing center. Human captives were separated into groups based on criteria. Karen couldn't determine some were taken immediately to laboratory sections, others were placed in stasis chambers. "They're selecting for genetic markers," whispered Mira, the Zanari scientist, "looking for specific traits." A Vorn technician approached Karen, scanning her thoroughly. Its multiple eyes focused on the readings with interest. It made a series of clicking sounds and 2 guards stepped forward. "They're taking you for immediate processing," Linda whispered. "Urgently, too soon." Karen remained calm, though her heart raced. "Stick to the plan, wait for my signal." The guards led her through winding corridors deeper into the ship. Karen memorized the route, noting security checkpoints and access panels. The mothership was vast, a city in space designed to process thousands of captives. Finally, they reached a laboratory section. Unlike the sterile efficiency of the rest of the ship, this area hummed with activity. Vorn scientists moved between workstations, monitoring experiments. Behind transparent walls, Karen saw humans in various stages of transformation. Some had already begun developing exoskeleton components. Others showed no external changes, but their eyes had the vacant look of neural tampering. Karen was secured to an examination table. A device descended from the ceiling, scanning her brain patterns. She felt a moment of panic. What if they detected the implants? What if they realized who she was? A senior Vorn entered the room. Its exoskeleton, more elaborate than the others, indicating high rank. It studied her scan results with obvious interest, its mandibles clicking rapidly. To Karen's horror, it spoke in perfect English. "Your neural patterns are unusual." Human highly developed language. Center's excellent candidate for integration. She hadn't expected direct communication. The Vorn rarely bothered communicating with captives. Their words confirmed her fears. They had selected her because of her linguistic abilities, the very skills that had made her valuable to Earth now, made her a prime target as the Vorn prepared equipment. Karen knew she couldn't wait any longer. The plan had been to activate the device once all team members were in position. But circumstances had forced her hand-using techniques Talara had taught her. Karen focused her thoughts, activating the neural implant at the base of her skull. A subtle warmth spread through her mind as the device powered up. The senior Vorn froze suddenly, its movements becoming erratic. It turned to Karen, its compound eyes focusing and unfocusing. "What is happening?" Karen smiled despite her fear. "Something you wouldn't understand, independence." The disruption signal expanded through the ship systems, following Vorn neural pathways and communication networks. Like a virus, it spread, carrying with it the essence of human thought, emotion, creativity, unpredictability, individuality. Throughout the mothership, alarms blared. Vorn soldiers stumbled, confused by conflicting impulses. The hive mind that had coordinated them fractured under the assault of human consciousness. Karen felt the restraints on her table release. The security systems were failing. She slipped free and ran for the door. As she entered the corridor, she saw Chaos Vorn turning against each other. Some stood paralyzed, others fought invisible enemies. She had to find her team. Linda, Mira, and Zev would be waiting for her signal, activating their own implants to strengthen the disruption field Karen navigated. The confusing corridors following the mental map she had created. 2 Vorn guards appeared ahead, but they ignored her, lost in their own mental turmoil. She reached the processing center where she had been separated from her team. The room was in disarray. Humans stood in confused groups, some helping others escape, some simply frozen in fear. "Linda," Karen called, searching the faces. "Mira, Zev." A hand grabbed her shoulder. She turned to find Linda, grinning. "Your signal came through loud and clear. The whole ship is going haywire." Mira and Zev appeared behind her. "We must reach the central processing node," Zev urged. "Complete the mission while they are vulnerable." The team fought their way through the ship, using the confusion to their advantage. They reached the central core, the heart of the Vorn neural network. Here massive organic computers pulsed with energy, coordinating the entire invasion force. "Set the charges," Karen ordered. "We may never get another chance." As Linda and Zev planted explosive devices, Karen and Mira connected their disruption implants to the main system, amplifying the signal. A wave of human consciousness flooded the Vorn network, spreading to every ship in their fleet. "Charges set," Linda reported. 2 minutes until detonation." "Time to go," Karen said. "Head for the escape pods." They ran through corridors, passing confused Vorn and escaping humans. The mothership had become a maze of chaos and opportunity. An explosion rocked the ship, nearly throwing them off their feet. Secondary systems were failing. The Vorn mothership was dying. They reached the escape pod section. Linda quickly overrode the launch controls. A pod door opened, revealing cramped but functional space. "Everyone in," Karen ordered. As Mira and Zev climbed aboard, Karen heard screams from an adjacent corridor. "Go," she told Linda. "He'll be right back." Before Linda could protest, Karen ran toward the sound. In a side chamber, she found human prisoners trapped behind a force field. The ship's damage had locked them in. "Stand back," she shouted. Using an abandoned Vorn weapon, she blasted the control panel. The field flickered and died. "Follow me," she told the prisoners. "Escape pods this way," leading a dozen frightened humans. Karen raced back to the launch bay. Linda held the pod, waiting 30 seconds to detonation. She warned. Karen hurried the prisoners into 2 additional pods, programming the launch sequence. She jumped into the pod with Linda, just as the countdown reached 10 seconds. The pods ejected from the mothership, accelerating away from the doomed vessel. Behind them, the Vorn ship shuddered as explosions rippled across its surface. Then a massive blast tore through the central core. The mothership broke, a part fragment spinning into space. "Signal the fleet," Karen told Linda. "Tell them it worked." As their pod descended toward Earth, Karen watched Vorn ships across the sky. Many drifted aimlessly. Their coordination shattered. Others began to retreat, abandoning the invasion. For the first time in months, Karen allowed herself to feel at victory. "Approaching drop zone," Linda reported. "No enemy activity detected." The team parachuted into the dense jungle 5 miles from the Vorn base. They would proceed on foot to avoid detection. Karen watched their body cameras as they moved through the thick vegetation. The Amazon had suffered from the Vorn presence. Trees withered near their installations. The natural vibrance of the rainforest dimmed as if the land itself rejected the alien invaders. After 4 hours of careful movement, the team reached a ridge overlooking the Vorn base. What they saw sent shivers through the command center. "Are you seeing this?" Marcus whispered. The base was larger than anticipated. A massive structure rose from cleared jungle. Its black surface pulsed with red energy. Surrounding it were smaller buildings connected by glowing pathways. Most disturbing were the rows of transparent containers. Each held what appeared to be a human floating in clear liquid. "They're collecting specimens," Nex said. "The Zanari." Warrior's voice tight with anger, "just as they did on other worlds." Linda zoomed her camera on the containers. "Those people, are they alive?" "Life signs detected." Nex confirmed, checking a handheld device. "But their neural patterns are suppressed." Karen felt sick as she watched the footage. "Can you get closer? We need to see what they're doing with them." The team moved down the ridge using the jungle as cover. They approached the perimeter of the base where Vorn guards patrolled in precise patterns. Marcus deployed a small drone the size of a hummingbird. It flitted between buildings, capturing footage of the interior. Through it, they saw laboratories filled with strange equipment. Vorn scientists moved between workstations, analyzing data. "Look there." Karen pointed as the drone passed a central chamber. Inside was a human woman connected to machinery. Her skin had begun to change, taking on a grayish hue. Beside her stood a Vorn, different from the others. Its exoskeleton showed patches of human, like skin a hybrid. They're incorporating human DNA into themselves, Talara whispered beside Karen. This is worse than we feared. President Chen stood. We need to destroy that facility immediately. General Hayes nodded. I'll prepare a strike team. The reconnaissance team received new orders. They would place targeting beacons around the base to guide precision strikes, then withdraw to a safe distance as they moved into position. Linda suddenly froze. Movement at 3:00. A Vorn patrol emerged. From the trees, 4 soldiers moving with perfect synchronization. Their sensors swept the area. Don't move, Karen advised through the comm. Their visual systems are motion-based. The team remained perfectly still as the patrol passed within yards of their position. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they would be discovered, then the Vorn continued on their route. That was too close. Marcus breathed once they were clear. The team split up, placing beacons at strategic points around the facility. Linda took the northern section, Marcus the east, and next the western approach. Karen watched their progress, tension building. Her linguist training had never prepared her for this kind of operation, but her understanding of Vorn behavior patterns proved invaluable, guiding the team past security measures. As Linda placed the final beacon, an alarm sounded throughout the base. We've been detected, she reported, proceeding to extraction point. Vorn soldiers poured from the buildings, forming search patterns. The team ran through the jungle next, taking point with superior night vision. Strike team is inbound, General Hayes announced. ETA 5 minutes. Karen watched helplessly as Vorn forces closed in on the team. Marcus stumbled, his leg caught. In a tangle of vines, Linda turned back to help him. Leave me, he gasped. Complete the mission. Linda ignored him, cutting through the vines. No one gets left behind. As they freed Marcus Vorn, soldiers appeared through the trees, energy weapons powered up with ominous hums. Neck stepped forward, raising his weapon. Go, I'll hold them. Before Linda or Marcus could protest, the Zanari warrior opened fire. His advanced weapon cut down the first wave of Vorn, but more kept coming. Next, Karen called through. The comm, fall back, that's an order. The warrior ignored her, continuing to fire, creating a barrier between the humans and the approaching Vorn. Linda and Marcus had no choice but to run, hearing the sounds of battle fade behind them. The strike team arrived moments later. A flight of advanced fighters screamed overhead, dropping precision munitions on the Vorn base. The facility erupted in explosions, secondary detonations indicating they had hit something vital. Linda and Marcus reached the extraction. Point A helicopter waited to return them to base. As they climbed aboard, Linda looked back toward where they had left Nex. He saved us, she said quietly. We have to go back for him, but satellite imagery showed the area swarming with Vorn forces. A rescue would be suicide. When they returned to command, Karen met them at the landing pad. The loss of Nex weighed heavily on her. The Zanari had become more than allies. They were friends. His sacrifice will not be forgotten, she told Linda. The data you collected will help us understand what we're facing. Analysis of the reconnaissance footage revealed the true horror of the Vorn plan. They were creating hybrids, combining their own biology with human genetic material. These new creatures would have Vorn strength and coordination with human adaptability and creativity. If they perfect this process, they could become unstoppable, Talara warned the Emergency Council. A species with all their strengths and none of their weaknesses. President Chen turned to Karen. How do we stop them? Karen had been studying the footage, looking for anything they might have missed. Something about the hybrid process seemed familiar. The transformation requires enormous energy, she said slowly. The facility was drawing power from multiple sources, but there was something else. She pulled up an image from the drone footage, zooming in on equipment in the background. This is similar to Zanari neural mapping technology, she realized. They're not just taking human DNA, they're trying to incorporate human consciousness. Talara leaned forward, her skin brightening with excitement. That could be their weakness. The Vorn operate on a hive mind. Human consciousness is individual. Combining the two could create instability. For the first time in weeks, Karen felt a spark of hope. If we could trigger that instability somehow. The idea grew as she discussed possibilities with Talara and the scientific team. What if they could turn the Vorn adaptation against them? What if human consciousness could resist or even override the Vorn collective? It's a long shot, General Hayes warned, and it would require getting close to their main processing centers. But if it works, Karen replied, we could turn their greatest weapon into their downfall. As dawn broke over the command center, Karen watched survivors being evacuated from cities under siege, children with haunted eyes, families separated by war. A planet fighting for its very existence. The Vorn had superior technology, greater numbers, and a unified purpose. But humans had something they didn't understand, something the Zanari had recognized when they sought Earth as an ally. Humans never surrendered. They adapted, they improvised, and most importantly, they maintained their individual spark even in the face of a collective threat. Karen looked at the battle maps. The red areas showing Vorn control seemed overwhelming, but she saw something else too, points of blue where resistance continued. Against impossible odds, we have a plan, she announced to the War Council, and we have something the Vorn will never understand. What's that? Asked President Chen Hope. Karen replied, and the stubborn refusal to be defeated. Now for part 4. 2 months into the war, Earth forces had adapted to Vorn tactics. The initial panic had given way to grim determination. Humanity fought with increasing effectiveness, combining Zanari technology with human ingenuity. Karen stood before the Joint Military Council, her proposal displayed on screens around the room. The data from the Amazon facility had provided crucial insights into Vorn biology and their hybridization program. The Vorn neural network is their greatest strength but also their vulnerability, she explained, pointing to neural scans. Their hive mind allows perfect coordination, but it cannot process individual consciousness efficiently. Talara stepped forward, her skin pulsing with excitement. We believe we can create a disruption signal based on human brainwave patterns, something the Vorn collective cannot filter or adapt to. The room fell silent as military leaders considered the implications. General Hayes was the first to speak. You want to broadcast human thoughts into their network? Not exactly, Karen clarified. More like the pattern of human thinking, the unpredictability, the emotional components, the aspects of consciousness that make us different from them. President Chen leaned forward. And this will accomplish what exactly? At minimum, it should create confusion in their ranks, Karen replied. At best, it could trigger a cascade failure in their communication system. Perhaps even allow some of their hybrids to break free from collective control. How do we deliver this signal? Asked Admiral Foster. Their ships are heavily shielded. This was the most dangerous part of the plan. Karen took a deep breath before answering. We need to infiltrate their main processing hub, the mothership in orbit. Objections erupted around the table. The mothership was the most heavily defended Vorn asset. Even with stealth technology approaching it seemed impossible. Karen Miller sat in her small office at NASA, watching the satellite feed with wide eyes. The linguist had spent 15 years studying communication patterns, but never expected to use her skills with actual aliens. Her phone rang, making her jump. Doctor. Miller, we need you at mission control now, the voice said. The aliens are trying to communicate. Karen grabbed her laptop and rushed down the hallway. Her heart pounded as she entered the large room filled with screens and nervous technicians. General, Hayes nodded at her as she took a seat. They sent this 10 minutes ago, he said, pointing to a central screen. The message consisted of strange symbols flowing like water across the display. Karen leaned forward, studying the patterns. Her mind raced. As she noticed repeating sequences, it's mathematical, she said after several minutes. They start with prime numbers, then move to more complex equations. It's a foundation for communication. For 3 days, Karen worked without sleep, analyzing the alien language. She discovered it was based on relationships between concepts rather than direct translations. The aliens called themselves the Zanari from a star system 200 light-years away. On the fourth day, the Zanari requested a face-to-face meeting. They would send a shuttle to a remote location in the Nevada desert. Karen was selected as part of the welcoming committee. The shuttle descended silently from the sky like a silver teardrop. When the door opened, Karen held her breath. The Zanari stood 7 feet tall with iridescent skin that shifted between blue and green. 4 arms extended from a slender torso. Their faces had no nose but large almond-shaped eyes that glowed with inner light. The lead alien stepped forward, raising all 4 hands in what Karen recognized as a greeting gesture. "We come in peace," Karen said, using the translation device she had developed. The alien tilted its head. "We have watched your world for many cycles. Your species shows great potential, despite your violent tendencies," Karen translated for the officials standing behind her. Their faces showed a mixture of awe and fear. "Why have you come to Earth?" General Hayes asked. The alien gestured toward the sky. "A threat approaches, one that has destroyed many worlds. We came to warn you and offer alliance." This revelation sent shockwaves through the global community. The Zanari explained that a species called the Vorn were moving through the galaxy, conquering everything in their path. Earth had less than 5 years to prepare. Karen became the chief human liaison with the Zanari embassy established in what was once Yellowstone National Park. She spent months learning their culture and technology. The Zanari scientist Talara became her closest alien friend. The 2 females worked together, developing communication protocols between their species. "Your kind learns quickly," Talara observed one day as they walked through the embassy gardens. Her skin rippled with blue patterns, indicating pleasure. "Most species take decades to adapt to new concepts," Karen smiled. "Necessity is a powerful motivator. We know the Vorn are coming." Talara stopped walking, her eyes dimming slightly. "There is something you should know. The Zanari Council did not tell your leaders everything about the Vorn." Karen felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean? The Vorn do not just conquer planets. They harvest the genetic material of each species they encounter to enhance themselves. They find humans particularly interesting because of your adaptability." "Why keep this secret?" Karen asked. "The Council feared your leaders would react with panic, perhaps even turn against us out of suspicion. But I believe humans deserve to know the full truth about what we face." Karen reported this information to her superiors. The revelation created tension between Earth governments and the Zanari Council. Some politicians called for breaking the alliance, claiming the aliens could not be trusted. 3 months later, Zanari sensors detected a Vorn scout ship at the edge of the solar system. Panic swept through Earth media. The scout disappeared before military vessels could intercept it. Karen found herself working 18-hour days. As the liaison between increasingly distrustful humans and frustrated Zanari leadership on both sides began to fracture under pressure. "They violated our trust," General Hayes argued during an emergency meeting. "How do we know they aren't working with the Vorn?" "That makes no sense," Karen countered. "Why warn us at all if they were allied with our enemy?" President Chen raised her hand, silencing the argument. "Dr. Miller, what do you believe after working so closely with them?" Karen took a deep breath. "I believe the Zanari are genuinely here to help us, but their culture views information differently. They share on a need-to-know basis, which clashes with our expectations of transparency." The president nodded. "Then we need to establish new protocols for information sharing. Make it clear that full disclosure is our expectation for continued alliance." Karen returned to the embassy with this mandate. Talara helped her present the human position to the Zanari Council. "Your species demands much." The Zanari High Leader said, his skin darkening with displeasure. "We ask for honesty." Karen replied, "Without it, there can be no true alliance." After tense negotiations, the Zanari agreed to share all intelligence regarding the Vorn. This new transparency strengthened the relationship between the species. Military forces began joint training exercises as scientists from both worlds worked on defensive technology. 6 months passed. Karen mastered the Zanari language, becoming the first human to speak it fluently. Her understanding of their culture grew deeper. She learned that the Zanari were a matriarchal society where females held most leadership positions. Their concept of family extended to entire community units, with children raised collectively. One evening, as Karen worked late in her office, Talara rushed in, her skin pulsing with red alarm patterns. A Vorn fleet has been detected crossing the Kuiper Belt. They will reach Earth in 7 days. Karen froze. 7 days, that's years ahead of schedule. The scout must have reported that Earth has allied with us. The Vorn consider us their greatest rivals. They will not allow our alliance to strengthen. Earth governments declared global emergency military. Forces mobilized around the planet. Civilian populations moved into underground shelters built with Zanari technology. The Zanari positioned their 20 warships in defensive formation around Earth. But against 200 Vorn vessels, it seemed hopeless. Karen stood in NASA mission control, watching tracking screens as the Vorn fleet approached. The room fell silent as the first images came through. The Vorn ships resembled black spiders, mechanical legs extending from central hubs. Their weapons, systems glowed with ominous red energy. We should have had more time. General Hayes whispered. Karen turned to Talara. There has to be something we can do, some weakness we can exploit. Talara hesitated, then said, There is one possibility, but it would require great sacrifice. As the Vorn fleet entered Earth's orbit, Karen found herself on the main Zanari vessel standing before the High Council. She presented the desperate plan Talara had helped her develop. The risk is enormous, the High Leader said. Many will die. Many will die regardless. Karen replied, This at least gives us a chance. After brief deliberation, the Council approved the plan. Karen returned to Earth to brief human leaders. As dawn broke over North America, the first Vorn ships began atmospheric entry. Their black hulls blotted out the sun as they descended toward major cities. The battle for Earth had begun. Now I'll create Part 2. Begins. The Vorn ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like massive spiders, their black hulls absorbing sunlight. Karen watched from the command center as defense systems around the globe activated Zanari technology had helped upgrade human weapons, but against such overwhelming numbers, victory seemed impossible. All units report ready. General Hayes announced, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Evacuation of civilian populations to underground shelters is at 80%. Karen turned to Talara, who stood beside her, monitoring Zanari communications. The alien scientist had become her closest friend over the months of preparation. Her iridescent skin now pulsed with determination. The High Council has approved our strategy. Talara said, But they warn the chance of success is below 30%. Karen nodded grimly. Sometimes slim odds are all we get. The plan was desperate, but it was their only hope. While Earth forces engaged the Vorn in conventional battle, a small team would infiltrate the enemy command ship. Karen and Talara had discovered a potential weakness in Vorn neural networks. A specific electromagnetic pulse could temporarily disable their hive mind communication, leaving them vulnerable. The first Vorn landing crafts touched down outside major cities around the world. Earth forces moved into defensive positions. The aliens emerged from their ships, tall humanoid figures with exoskeletons resembling insect carapaces. Their heads featured multiple red eyes and clicking mandibles. Karen watched on monitors as they advanced. Weapons raised human, and Zanari forces opened fire. The Vorn moved with terrifying coordination. No wasted motion, no hesitation. They seemed to function as parts of a single organism. Neural link confirmed. Talara reported analyzing data. They operate on collective consciousness, just as we suspected. In New York, Vorn forces pushed through the first defensive line. Human soldiers fell back to prepared positions. Zanari. Air support strafed the alien advance, cutting down dozens, but more kept coming.